You spend 23 years pouring every last bit of yourself into raising your son. Not just the big things, graduations, birthdays, trophies on the mantle, but the small, invisible sacrifices no one ever applauds. The dinners you kept warm when your shift ran late. The nights you stayed awake on the edge of his bed, stroking his hair as he coughed through a fever. The times you swallowed your own disappointments just to make room for his dreams. You weather every storm with him, literal ones on the soccer field, emotional ones through middle school heartbreak and college stress. And you do it all thinking this is what motherhood is supposed to feel like. Hard, yes, but precious. And then one day, a woman you've never laid eyes on drifts into his life, and within months, she rewrites the story you spent decades building. The phone calls disappear. Sunday dinners become suddenly optional. That familiar warmth when he said hi, Mom gets replaced with a stiff, polite tone. The kind you'd use with someone whose name you're struggling to remember. You watch your own child morph into a stranger. And the worst part is you can practically see the strings and who's pulling them. But here's the question that haunts you at 2 a.m. At what point do you stop fighting for your son and start fighting for your own dignity? My name is Linda. I'm 54, and for 30 years I've been married to my husband, Robert. We didn't live a glamorous life, no vacations in Europe, no designer clothes, no fancy job titles. Robert was a maintenance supervisor at a manufacturing plant, and I spent 15 years as a dental office secretary before going part-time when Michael was born. Our life was steady and safe in a quiet Ohio neighborhood where people still waved when they walked their dogs and dropped casseroles on porches when someone's mother landed in the hospital. We believed in little things, family dinners, honest work, saying I love you before bed. And for 26 years, Michael was the center of that world. He wasn't perfect, but he was sweet and thoughtful. It's the kind of boy who'd pick wildflowers from the yard and hand them to me with a shy, lopsided smile. Robert taught him tools and engines. I taught him laundry and kindness. He grew up grounded, grateful, present. When he got into a state university 2 hours away, we cried out of pride. We helped him move, sent care packages, and called twice a week. Even after he graduated and got his first apartment and job, he still came home every other weekend like clockwork. We had built something strong and real. Then 3 years ago, he mentioned a girl named Vanessa. He said it casually at first, trying not to reveal how excited he really was. He showed us a photo. She was beautiful, but in a polished, curated way. Perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect angles. She looked like the kind of woman who ironed her bedsheets and never bought anything on sale. But we were happy for him. Your child finding love is supposed to be a blessing. But weeks turned into months, and every time we asked to meet her, there was an excuse. She was busy with work. She had plans. She had family in town. When we finally met her, she chose the kind of restaurant where the portions are microscopic and the check makes you swallow hard. She strolled in 15 minutes late, barely looked up from her phone, and spent dinner talking as if she were giving a TED Talk about herself. Every sentence was a humble brag. Every laugh felt rehearsed. And the moment she said, "Oh, so you were a stay-at-home mom," in that syrupy sweet tone people use when they're coding an insult, I felt something inside me shift. After that dinner, everything changed. Michael's calls got shorter. His visits stopped entirely. Every time we suggested coming to see him, it was not a good weekend. Vanessa had plans. Vanessa was stressed. Vanessa needed quiet. The excuses stacked up as the tide rose higher between us. Then the holidays came. 26 years of Thanksgivings and Christmases spent in our house, with our traditions. And 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, Michael called with a voice that was too polite. He wasn't coming home. He was spending the holiday with her family. That was the first crack in a foundation I thought was unbreakable. He said it so casually, like he was mentioning the weather, not dropping a bomb on my heart. I asked if they could at least stop by afterward, just for dessert. Michael said they'd try. They didn't. Christmas wasn't any different. You sent a mass-produced text Christmas morning, the kind you send coworkers you barely know. Attached was a photo of him and Vanessa posing like a magazine couple in front of her parents' enormous stone fireplace. I cried that night deep, animal crying that leaves your throat raw and your chest bruised. Robert held me, whispering that it was just a phase, that Michael would grow out of it. But I knew my son wasn't slipping away. He was being pulled. The months that followed were quiet torture. Texts went unanswered for hours, sometimes days. Invitations were met with vague excuses. Meanwhile, social media showed him smiling in every picture: concerts, rooftop dinners, weekend getaways, all with Vanessa and her perfectly curated world. And when we did see him, it was like visiting with a stranger. He made snide comments about our home being a bit dated. He suggested we invest in ourselves more, like we hadn't spent 2 decades investing in him. He talked about upgrading your life and surrounding yourself with successful people, phrases that sounded ripped straight from Vanessa's lips. Then came the engagement. We didn't hear a word from Michael. Not a call, not a visit, not even a text. We found out from Facebook, staring at a perfectly staged photo of Vanessa's hand and a diamond the size of my thumbnail. "Forever starts now," the caption said. I must have stared at that post for an hour, scrolling through congratulations from people I'd never met, people who apparently knew more about my son's future than I did. When I finally called him, Michael sounded annoyed that I dared to be hurt. He told me he planned to tell us but wanted to enjoy the moment first. He said Vanessa's parents had thrown an engagement party that same night, one we weren't even invited to, one that happened before his own parents even knew he'd proposed. That was the moment the fog cleared. Every holiday, every milestone, every memory of Vanessa and her family were deliberately cutting us out. And Michael was defending her at every turn. When I admitted I felt left behind, he accused me of being dramatic. When Robert mentioned feeling excluded, Michael said we were trying to control his life. The wedding planning was when things turned from painful to absurd. Vanessa took control of everything. The venue was 4 hours away. The date was the 1 week a year Robert could take vacation. The registry was full of items that cost more than our monthly income. When I offered to help, she smiled politely and told Michael she preferred to keep things simple by working only with her mother. My role was reduced to show up, wear a dress she approved, sit where she placed me, and smile like I belonged there. Then came the breaking point. The night they asked to talk. I spent hours preparing Michael's favorite meal. I lit candles. I put fresh flowers on the table. But when Vanessa walked in, she surveyed the room like a real estate investor touring a fixer-upper. No hug, no warmth. She perched on the couch like it might stain her designer jeans. Michael cleared his throat and said they needed to talk about wedding finances. He explained that Vanessa's parents were contributing $50,000. Then said her parents felt it was only fair that we match it to show equal investment. $50,000. We didn't have $50,000. We didn't have 10. When Robert tried to explain, Vanessa cut him off. She said that if we really cared about Michael's happiness, we'd find a way. She suggested we take out a loan or refinance our house. I waited for Michael to speak up, to defend us, to say something, but he just nodded like this was reasonable. He said he knew it was a lot, but it was important to Vanessa, and he hoped we could step up. Step up. It spent 23 years stepping up. Robert offered $5,000 more than we could safely give. Vanessa rolled her eyes and said it really showed where Michael ranked in our priorities. She stormed outside. He followed her. Through the window, I watched her sob dramatically while he comforted her, choosing her crocodile tears over our very real financial reality. When he returned, he didn't apologize. He just said they should leave. That night, I didn't sleep. By morning, the hurt solidified into clarity. I was done begging for crumbs of affection, done being treated like a burden, done letting Vanessa rewrite our family's history. I sat down at my computer and started writing a letter to Michael, an honest accounting of every single thing we had paid for throughout his life. I went through old bank statements, receipts, tax returns. I calculated the cost of 23 years of child rearing: diapers, formula, clothes, toys, doctor visits, sports equipment. School supplies, field trips, birthday parties, summer camps, braces, car insurance, college application fees, moving expenses, furniture for his first apartment, emergency car repairs we covered, phone bills we paid until he was 25. I broke it down year by year, category by category. The total came to just over $340,000. That didn't include the intangible costs of promotions I turned down, the career I paused, the dreams I deferred. I attached a simple note. Michael, you asked us to show we are equally invested in your future. This is what we have already invested in your past. We gave you everything we had. If that is not enough, then perhaps you need to reconsider what you actually value. I sat on it for 3 days, making sure it wasn't cruel, just truthful. Then I sent it. 2 hours later, my phone exploded. Michael called, furious. He said I was being manipulative, trying to guilt him that parents don't keep score of what they spend on their kids. I stayed calm. I told him he was absolutely right. Parents don't keep score. But when your future in-laws demand a financial scoreboard, I thought it was important everyone see the full picture. Kay had no response. He hung up. Vanessa called 10 minutes later. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was unhinged. She called me toxic. She said I was sabotaging their relationship. She said if I couldn't be happy for them, maybe I shouldn't come to the wedding at all. I saved the voicemail. Then I called Michael back and told him very simply, we would not be contributing beyond the $5,000 we already offered. We would attend the wedding if we were genuinely welcome, and we would no longer accept being treated like ATMs or obstacles. If he wanted a relationship with us, he needed to start acting like we mattered. The next 3 weeks were silent. No calls, no texts, nothing. It was painful, but it was also clarifying. I realized I had been so desperate to keep my son close that I had accepted being disrespected, dismissed, and devalued. I had let Vanessa set the terms of our relationship because I was afraid of losing Michael completely, but I had already lost him. The question was whether I would lose myself in the process. Then, 2 weeks before the wedding, Michael showed up at our house unannounced. He looked exhausted, sat at the kitchen table, and broke down. He said Vanessa had been furious about my letter. She demanded he cut us off completely. She said if he didn't choose her, she would call off the wedding. And for the first time in 3 years, he questioned whether that would actually be a bad thing. He said he felt trapped. He said he didn't recognize himself anymore. He said he missed us but didn't know how to fix what had broken. I wanted to hug him and tell him everything would be okay, but I knew that wouldn't help him. Instead, I asked him, if Vanessa truly loved you, would she ask you to choose between her and your family? Would she measure your love in dollars? Would she make you feel guilty for having parents who sacrificed everything but don't have a vacation home? He stared at his hands. He didn't answer, but I could see the gears turning. Robert spoke up then. He said, son, we will always love you. But love doesn't mean letting you treat us poorly. You have a choice to make. You can marry someone who respects your family, or you can marry someone who erases it. But you cannot marry someone who does the latter and expect us to smile through it. Michael left that night without making any promises. The wedding was still happening. We still didn't know if we were genuinely welcome or just obligatory guests. Then, for days before the ceremony, Michael called. He said he and Vanessa had postponed the wedding. Not canceled. Postponed. He said they needed time to work through some issues. He said he needed space to think. And for the first time in years, he apologized. He said he was sorry for how he had treated us. Sorry for letting Vanessa control everything. Sorry for forgetting what really mattered. I cried again, but this time they were different tears. Tears of relief. I told him we loved him. I told him we would be there whenever he was ready. I told him that real love doesn't demand you abandon the people who raised you. He said he was starting to understand that. It has been 8 months since that phone call. Michael and Vanessa are no longer together. He moved back to our area, not into our house, but close enough that we can have dinner once a week. He's seeing a therapist. He's rebuilding friendships he neglected. He's slowly becoming the person he used to be. The journey hasn't been easy. He still struggles with guilt and embarrassment over how things unfolded. But he's trying, and that's what matters. I learned something profound through this entire ordeal. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do as a parent is to stop enabling behavior that destroys the relationship. Sometimes you have to let your child experience consequences. Sometimes you have to choose your own dignity over their temporary comfort. It doesn't mean you love them less. It means you love them enough to tell them the truth, even when the truth is hard. Vanessa occasionally tries to contact Michael. She sends long messages about how they could work through things if he just tried harder. He doesn't respond. He told me that seeing her messages now feels like reading emails from a stranger. He can't believe he almost married someone who made him feel like he had to earn love through compliance. That revelation didn't come easy. It came from pain, from distance, from being forced to see clearly what he had been too close to recognize. As for me and Robert, we're rebuilding too. We're remembering how to be a couple, not just parents. We're taking that vacation we postponed a dozen times. We're fixing up the house, not because anyone criticized it, but because we want to. We're learning that our worth isn't measured by how much we can give or how much we're needed. We have value simply because we exist, because we tried, because we loved imperfectly, but completely. There are still hard days. Days when I wonder if I handled things correctly. Days when I worry about what scars this whole experience left on Michael. Days when I see mothers with their adult children and feel a pang of jealousy for relationships that look easy. But mostly, I feel something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you stood up for yourself. The kind of peace that comes from setting boundaries. The kind of peace that comes from refusing to let someone else define your worth. To anyone going through something similar, anyone watching their child transform under the influence of a toxic partner, anyone feeling invisible in their own family story, I want you to hear this. You're not crazy for feeling hurt. You're not selfish for wanting respect. You're not wrong for expecting the people you love to treat you with basic dignity. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for everyone involved is to stop pretending everything is fine when it clearly isn't. Let me know in the comments, what would you have done in this situation? And don't forget to subscribe to Golden Years Diary for more stories like this.